The following production is part of the Play Some Video Games podcast network.
Sandworms, and welcome to Board with Video Games, the gaming podcast that strives for the right balance of coverage for games you play on your table and on your television. You can think of us as the Frank Herbert of gaming podcasts. We're a proud member of the PSVG podcast network. I am one of your hosts, Kyle, and joining me on this co-op adventure, the house hearkening to my house Atreides. Josh, how are you doing this evening?
I am exhausted, as usual. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I was actually really nervous because I was trying to think of, I think it's House Atreides, but I haven't said this in a long time, so I feel like that's right, but I don't totally know.
It's Atreides.
Okay, just making sure. I was like, I feel like this is correct. You can't
tell because it went from book to film, so it could have got lost in translation. You might have nailed it on the head.
Yeah. So I haven't done anything Dune in a really long time.
Well, I couldn't remember if we did, and I wrote it. I was like, "Oh, did we cover that also?" And then when I was like, "The Frank Herbert of Gaming Podcasts," what am I thinking? That's very presumptuous.
That is very presumptuous. That's okay though. And then also, I started thinking about it. And I was like, I'm pretty sure it's Frank Herbert, but I don't think I've ever heard anyone say his name.
No. Well, it depends on if you refer to the movie as Frank Herbert's Dune or not.
Right. But I just didn't know, was there some, cool, pronunciation on Herbert? Or is it just Herbert Hoover?
Bear.
Right. I didn't know. I didn't assume so, but then I started thinking about it, and I didn't really know that I ever had heard anyone actually say his name before. So I just went with it. And I think that's right, though. I'm pretty certain it's right.
I think you nailed it.
Awesome. Well, hey, you know what? This is not a book podcast. This is not a Dune podcast. This is a gaming podcast. So thanks so much for joining us this week. As always, if you have any feedback, questions, suggested topics, hit us up at Board with VG on Twitter. Also at Board with VG over on Instagram, where Josh keeps posting amazing pictures of all the wonderful games he is playing. You can find us over on Facebook at facebook.com/boardwithvg. Also, we take those long form communications via email, boardwithvg@gmail.com. And finally, as always, use that hashtag boardwithvg on all the social medias so we know what you're playing and we can easily find the things that you are doing and talk about how awesome the games you are playing are. So enough of the housekeeping things. I actually have things to talk about this week for gaming, so I'm pretty excited. But Josh, we're going to start with you. What have you been playing on your tabletop this week, sir?
Well, as with our title would potentially clue into, we finally got Century Spice Roads to the table. I'd say finally, meaning, if you're listening, you know that I've played Century Golem Edition too many times to count. It's probably my favorite game that I am currently playing, and one of my favorite games in a long time.
Whoa. I'm going to interrupt you really quick. Sorry.
Yeah.
You're saying Century Golem Edition, top 3 favorite games of all time? Number 1 favorite game of all time? Where are we sitting?
Top 5.
Okay.
Top 5. I mean, it's tough when you put games in lists like this because the weight is so much different in varying games. It's a pretty lightweight game. So it's if I put it up against Pandemic Legacy, you can't really compare the two. So
right.
It's up there.
So it's clearly made I knew you liked it, but I didn't quite realize maybe it made that positive of an impact on you.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm trying to teach it to as many people as possible, just because I think more people need to get some experience with it.
Awesome.
So I got Century Spice Road for Father's Day, and we're trying to get it to the table, and we finally sat down with it the other night. And I mean, no surprise, Golem is a variant of Spice Road, so we already knew how to play. What I didn't know is that you can get bonus cards for Spice Roads on Plan B's website, which I will totally be doing now. which allows you to, I think, return a card to your hand as an action, I believe. I have to look into it. But if you don't know, or if you don't remember me talking about Gollum or haven't heard me talking about it, Century Spice Road is the original version of that game, and it's by Plan B Games. It's the first in a trilogy of games. They just released, they are about to release Eastern Wonders, which will be the second game in that trilogy, which is also playable with Century Spice Roads in a variant to that game. But essentially what you're doing is it's 2 to 4 players, 2 to 6 players. It might be 2 to 6 players. 2 to 4 or 2 to 6 players. And you start with a caravan and you are trading spices. And I can tell you cinnamon is one. I think cardamom is one. And I can't remember the other 2 spices off the top of my head. And they range from different point values. So there is a spice that's the lower point value, and then cinnamon, I think, is the highest point value. And essentially you are trading in, I'll give you the color. So 2 yellows is worth a green. 2 greens is worth a red. 2 reds worth a brown, in that order. You can upgrade your values of your spices. I'm doing a terrible job because I'm having trouble, because you can do 1 upgrade to the next color. So you don't trade in 2, you just upgrade. But you're drafting cards in the middle of the table in the merchant deck. The merchant deck has 6 cards to draw from left to right. They all have different equivalent exchange kind of values on them. So 1 card might say trade in 4 yellows to get 2 greens. 1 card might say, because brown is the highest, trade in 2 browns and you get 3 greens and 2 reds. So you're swapping back and forth, and you're also competing against the other players to get these cards into your hand. Once you get a card from the merchant deck, it goes into your hand, and then you're free to play it on your next turn. But a turn consists of 1 action for each player. And those actions are to either get a merchant card, after you play your cards, you put them down in front of you. You don't technically have a discard pile. So 1 action would be pick up all your cards. Another action would be buy and this one, I'm not sure what they're called. In Gollum, they're called Gollum cards, but essentially they're victory point cards. And on the victory point card would be a point value, like say 17. And the spice is required to acquire that card. So it could be a yellow, 2 greens, a red, and a brown. And there's 5 cards, and from left to right, they have values. The leftmost 2 cards have gold and silver coins above them, and those add value to your cards at the end of the game, which is good. You get 3 extra victory points for gold, and you get 1 for silver. When you're taking cards from the merchant deck, the leftmost card is always free. And if you want to take any cards after the leftmost card, you need to put down a spice cube for every card leading up to the card you want to purchase. So if you've played, there's other games with that mechanism in it that are more familiar maybe to other people, but that's essentially what you're doing. And the game goes until someone gets 6 victory point cards. Then it initiates the last turn. So everyone else who hasn't gone takes their last turn. And then you tally up your victory points at the end. As simple as that. The reason why these games stick out to me so much is, well, one, it's 1 page front and back, so 2-page instruction sheet, which is great. And half of that is really not instructions. It's kind of like end game, things set up. So really it's 1 page of rules, which is great. Very good for intro. Another thing, the games are beautiful. So nice to look at. And the production quality is remarkably high for a $40 game. And that's if you buy it at retail. You could probably get it for cheaper on like Miniature Market or any of these other places. BGG, not BGG. Geez, Cool Stuff Inc. Amazon's 40, right on the nose. Your local gaming store is going to be 40. But I can't wait for Eastern Wonders. It's a totally different type of game. but it's also, I did notice from the Dice Tower Origins previews, it is still one sheet of instructions. So I know that they're keeping that simplicity. I know that's important to them. So you can tell that when you're reading the rules too. They do a very good job of making sure everything is clear. So it's another big thumbs up. I think I still like Gollum better just from the artwork alone. And the components are a little bit nicer in Gollum because you have gems instead of wooden cubes like Pandemic cubes. But otherwise, you couldn't go wrong getting either game. So if you see either of those games and you're interested, I know Spice Rose is at Barnes and Nobles, so you could always potentially run into one of them at a regular retailer. But they're out there, and they're quickly becoming my favorite game studio too.
Yeah, it looks like Miniature Market is $27.99, though they're currently out of stock. Cool Stuff is $29.99, but in stock currently.
It's a great price.
Yeah, no, seems like a great price. So you said that you prefer the Gollum edition. Is that, and it sounds like purely just because of artwork, aesthetic, theming, the crystals, but from a gameplay perspective, it sounds like almost exactly the same, if not exactly
identical.
The same. Yeah,
It's identical. Yeah, they just changed out for whatever reason in Gollum edition, copper is worth more than silver.
Okay.
And there's no gold, so it's a little weird, but otherwise everything is exactly the same.
Gotcha. Very cool. And I did some digging while you were looking, and I know it caused you a little pause there. It's actually 2 to 5 players. So not quite 2 to 4, not quite 2 to 6. You got there though. Average right what we're doing out. You got it licked. So yeah, I have yet to play either of these games, but they are often on my shopping cart or in my shopping cart, and then I'm like, not quite today, and then I don't buy one. But maybe I will have to push it over the edge. Did you play any other tabletop games this week, sir?
We played Odin's Ravens again because we wanted to play a quick short game. Still a family favorite. Yeah, I think I've talked about it a few times, but Osprey Games, $25 I believe is what we paid. It's very easy. It's a fun to play, quick to learn game. So it's another game with really nice artwork as well. So that's always a good recommendation for me to give. Very,
very cool. All right, so we're gonna play a little game here, Josh.
I like games.
Okay. So I played some games this week, but this week the games I played, this was like junk food game week for Kyle. Everything I played, none of them were good games. They sometimes while you're playing them, you're like, this game, like, why do people hate it so much? It's so good. But then by the end, you realize you have a lot of regrets. Oh, I shouldn't have probably spent all this time playing this game. Maybe this isn't as good as I thought it was. Maybe mistakes were made. Okay. So the first game that was played, and the caveat being the wife and I were watching some movies, but we wanted to do something while we were watching movies. So we pulled out a few games to play. There were movies we had seen before, but we just kind of were in that mood to rewatch a couple things. So this first game that we played, the Board Game Geek rank overall for it is 15,414. What game do you think it was?
Oh my God. Just based on that, do you get no clues?
It is a card game.
Okay, and it's 2 players?
It is 2 to 6 players. It's been around for a very long time. It first was released in 1967.
Oh, it's Pit?
No.
67, and it's a card game.
It is a card game.
Uno?
Close, but not Uno. Would you like me to tell you?
I guess, yeah.
All right. And this is that major label release. We played Skippo.
I don't even know what that is.
You've never heard of Skippo?
No.
Okay, so here's what Skippo is. Skippo is a game that every once in a while I feel like we have to get these games that, or play these games and talk about these games that you find at all of the major retailers that you found for a very long time at all the major retailers. So Skippo, basically what the game is you have a deck of 30, or you have a pile of 30 cards. What your goal is to get through that pile of 30 cards first. First person to get through your pile of 30 cards wins, basically. So you flip up the first card. It's going to be numbered 1 through 12. And then you have a hand of, on your turn, you draw 5 cards from the draw pile, which is different than your pile of 30. And then from that draw pile, those 5 cards that you have, your goal is to play the cards out in numerical order. So 1 through 12. You have 4 piles in the center of the room that you can play into. You have to start one, you have to lay down a number 1, either from your hand, the top card of your pile of what you're trying to get, or one of the cards you can hold in reserve. So on your turn, you play as many cards as you can, and then you must discard a card into one of the 4 piles in front of you. Knowing that when you discard a card into that pile, anytime you take a card from the pile, you have to take from the top. So if you have a whole bunch of 12s, maybe making a discard pile of 12 is going to be a good idea. But the whole point is then just you try to, if you can, work through all 5 cards in your hand to draw 5 more cards, to continue to work through these until you can whittle down that pile of 30 cards to nothing and you win. Now, some person on the table, their top card of their pile might be a 1 or a skippo, which then is a wild card and you can skip any number with it. Or it might be a 12. So then you have to sit there and wait and wait and wait until one of the cards in the center, one of the piles in the center gets to be able to have a 12 played on it. However, everyone else who is playing knows exactly what cards you're looking for. So it's very, very easy for them to just play a 12 instead. And then your cards sit there forever.
That sounds awful.
It's not good. Skippo is not a good game. I think that as a kid, I enjoyed this game because I don't know why. I think it's because sometimes I was able to hose my sister. And I was like, ah, ha, ha, I was able to play this thing and you weren't. But as soon as you do that to someone, it's probably going to happen to you. And I think the reason I don't like the game very much is there's basically there's no player interaction. The only way you can interact with another player is you can see what they need to do. They can't act on your turn, but you can see what they need to do so you can try to set up the board so they can't do anything on their turn. But you also don't know what 5 cards they're going to have. But if you can maybe say they have a 5 as their skippo card that they're trying to get rid of, maybe you can get every pile to 6. So there's really nothing they're going to be able to do unless they can get a pile all the way to 12 to get rid of it, then start a new pile at 1, get all the way up to 4 to play that 5 card, which is going to be really, really hard to do. So if you could like interject on a player's turn or had some way to interact with what was happening, I think Skippo might be actually a moderately okay game. But since you can't do that, it's not a good game at all. I think it's actually pretty bad. And I actually won when we were playing, and I still didn't like it. But I hadn't played Skippo in a long time. I don't recommend it. I'm sure there are people who have played this with their families for a long time or who really are going to be passionate about this because of childhood memories of the game. But if you look at it with a critical lens, taking out nostalgia, Skippo is not a good game. And there's a reason it's ranked number 15,414. But there's one other game that I played, Josh, while we were watching these movies. Luckily, the movies were good because the games were not.
What would you watch?
We actually watched Mission Impossible Rogue Nation.
Yeah, good movie.
Yeah, it's getting ready for the next upcoming one here. So the next game we played is ranked number 15,548.
Whoa.
Released in 1982, so about as old as I am. It also is a card game, and I think you might be able to guess this one if I tell you one key thing about it. Tom Vassell says this is the worst game he's ever played.
Wait. Is it Monopoly?
It is not Monopoly.
What is his worst game he's ever played?
Or I should say at least one of the worst games he ever played. He actually ripped the cards up, if I recall, and threw them in the trash can at the end of his review, if I recall correctly.
Really?
Yeah.
Why don't I know his least favorite game? I'm just curious now.
This game.
I'm curious if I like it.
This game is Phase 10.
Oh.
Have you ever played Phase 10?
No, but the only reason why I haven't played it is because I've heard how bad it is.
It is horrible. So if you think Skippo sounds horrible, Phase 10 is, there is a reason it's ranked so bad, and there is a reason that so many people talk about how horrible it is it's very, very bad. What the point of Phase 10 is there's 10 phases in the game, hence the name. In each phase, you have a certain set of cards you are hoping to get. So when each phase starts, you are dealt 10 cards. Then in the middle of the table, you have the remaining deck and 1 card flipped over. On your turn, you're going to draw 1 card and discard 1 card. So you can either draw from the top of the draw pile or draw the 1 card at the top of the discard pile, either one, and then you discard 1 card. What you were trying to do, like for the first phase, you were trying to get 2 sets of 3 cards, okay? So once you have 2 sets of 3 cards in your hand, and you can gamify this a little more than this, but once you say you have 3 3s and 3 7s, you would lay down your 3 3s, you would lay down your 3 7s, and then you would discard a card to end your turn. Leaving, since you had 10 cards, you have now gotten rid of 7 of them. You have 3 cards left in your hand. The other person now needs to try to complete that phase as well. The way the phase ends is when someone's hand is completely empty. Okay? So even though you've played the things for your phase, you still have cards in your hand. You have to keep playing. And the only way to get rid of those cards is to build on the cards that are already on the board. And that's it. That's all you can do. So what you need to do then is if you played 3 3s and 3 7s, you need to keep drawing cards and discarding cards, hoping you're going to draw 3 to lay a 3 down and discard a card. So now you're down to 2 cards in hand. And then you're hoping to do that again and get either another 3 or another 7. Or you can also play off your opponent's cards. So say your opponent lays down their phase cards first and they have a 3 5s and 3 6s. If you have a 5 in your hand, if you've already played your phase, you can put the 5 on their 5, the 6 on their 6, and then discard a card. But that's what the entire game is. Once somebody has laid down their phase and has discarded their last card, so their hand is empty, that phase ends. If you still have cards in your hand, you get points for them. Obviously, the goal is to have the least number of points after the 10 phases, right? But if you didn't finish the phase, so say your opponent finishes the phase, discards their last card, and you haven't played your phase yet, they move on to phase 2. You are still on phase 1. Okay? Now, all of this sounds not great to start with, but here's the kicker, right? Once you get later on in the set, like I think like the 6th phase is you have to get 1 run of 9 cards. Okay? When I was playing this against my wife, I had won virtually every phase up to that point. We had both played our phases out, so she only had like 2 cards in hand at the end. So most of the time she'd gotten about 10 points in each phase. We got to 1 run of 9, which is phase 6. She literally got her cards dealt to her, slammed the run of 9, discarded her card, and I got points for everything in my hand. And that was it. There was nothing I could do. Like I totally lost that game because I didn't even get to play. Like I literally didn't even get to play. So if you want to know why Phase 10 is a horrible game, that is why Phase 10 is a horrible game. I'm okay with a little bit of luck. I'm okay with a little bit of variance in a game. But literally got dealt her cards, slammed the 9 down, discarded her card, and then I had like 2 wilds and something else in my hand too, so I got like 140 points, even though I had won the previous 5 rounds, so she was at like 50 points, and suddenly I was like 100 points behind her. So, Phase 10, it's a really bad game.
Yes.
Again, if you have nostalgia for it, and you think about the great times you had with your family, that's great for you. I appreciate the fact that you're nostalgic about it. But if you look at it with a critical lens, Phase 10 is a really, really horrible game. So, like I said, junk food board games for me this week. But hey, we don't just talk about board games. We also talk about video games. So Josh, what have you been playing on your television, sir?
Well, I haven't been playing on my television. That's the trick. I have been playing on my monitor.
Oh, that's right. You're a PC Master Race person now.
Just for a little bit. You know what it's like. It's the honeymoon period with the PC. So, got my internet boosted a little bit. That's a funny story for a longer podcast. Been playing. Okay, so I've been spending a lot of time with Lucas from Flux to Post and our own coach Mo, and we've been playing Civilization 5, which has been a blast. It's been a learning thing for me, to say the least. Well, I'll talk about Civilization 5. So I had never played a Civilization game before. I know that they're immensely popular, but I was an Age of Empires guy growing up, and then Command & Conquer, and Civilization seemed too strategic, less fun. At least that was like, when I was that age, that was just kind of like the stigma it had. So I never really got into it. So we just kind of jumped right in. Lucas and Mo had played quite a bit before I had. So we started a game of 6 players, 3 computers, 3S, and just kind of let us, we did random starting leaders and just kind of went off on our way. And I don't know if you've played Civilization before.
I've not.
something that I didn't know you can do. So in Age of Empires, I'll use this as an example, or even Command and Conquer. You start off as with your base, and you build out from your base, right? You strengthen your army, you build ships and tanks and whatever you can build. Well, in Civilization, you start with a city. So I started with Greece, and for what I believed was Greece is my capital, and I'm just going to try and build trade routes. I started right on the water, which was perfect, so I could build a harbor. Barbarians are kind of in the game. They're like NPCs, and they kind of just spawn all the time. So you're constantly fighting barbarians, which are constantly killing your scouts that you're sending out, or your own military. We played for probably 3 hours the first night without me knowing that I could build another city. Strengthens my city. So
right.
You build a person who goes out and scouts out land to build a new area, which then builds a bigger city, which then speeds up your income and your speed on building soldiers. And I didn't know you could do that for that whole first game. So I learned a little bit there, and I started building, but I think it was too late. I was already pretty decimated, and most of my people were killed, and it was taking 21 turns to build something.
Oh, wow.
So it's not over yet. We had to save it, and we're still in the middle of our currently, I think, 6-hour game, maybe 5 to 6 hours. I will say, from being a former PC person to mostly consoles, they say pain is temporary,
mm-hmm.
and you always forget until you experience it again. Well, I had forgotten how painful PC gaming can be. Because it took us a couple hours just to get the game running right with all three of us trying to play. And that was just Civilization. I couldn't even play Brink with Mo because it told me I didn't have the DLC that he had, but he said he didn't buy any DLC. So then that wouldn't work. So I didn't even get to play that with him. When we played Grand Theft Auto 5, so Lucas convinced us to get Grand Theft Auto. It was on sale for $20 on the Steam summer sale. Not for the base game, but for the online. So we could do the heist mode, which everyone loves. So then Lucas and I spent 2 hours trying to get Grand Theft Auto up and running the first night that was out with no success. And then we got it up the next night, and then Coach couldn't get in very easily with us. Eventually we did get in, and our heist was break into a police station. The first heist. So needless to say, we couldn't find our way, and I just walked up and shot the cop in front of the police station, and then we all died.
That seems like that's not going to go well.
Yeah, that was a bad idea. However, while the initial experiences weren't great, the grand scheme of things is going to, I think, pan out to be awesome. Just to be able to play these games on a different platform with people I wouldn't normally get to play with on maybe my Xbox or my PlayStation 4. Obviously, Coach has everything, but Lucas, he has a Switch and he has a PC, and he's always been a PC guy.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of opens that door. And I'm getting to play some games that I haven't played before. I have my Steam library. I have a bunch of games waiting to be played. I bought a few games. I got Undertale, finally. Tooth and Tail. I got the Steam link. It was on sale for $2.50.
Oh, wow.
So I'll be able to play my PC games on my TV, which is pretty awesome.
Tooth and Tail, that's the game Splig's a big fan of, right?
Yeah, I made sure I messaged him to let him know I got it. And it's purely because of how much I've seen him talk about it. And, he made it sound cool. So I'm going to give it a shot. I think it's an RTS style game. Mm-hmm. So I'm interested to check it out. I almost played it tonight before we started, but I tried a bad game that was free on Steam before we started. So so that's all I'll talk about, really, because I didn't really play any console gaming, except I did fire the Division backup on my PS4. I went in and bought a used copy just so I could get those shields that they're doling out for the Division 2. And yeah, my guy is like beast mode now. With all the gear that I got from the shield. I it's been so long since I played the Division, I didn't know you could change the world difficulty after you beat the game. So I didn't change it. I was like, I'm going to go do a mission. And like one of the things I got from my shield cache was a Tommy gun, and the stats for it were off the wall, super high. So I'm just going with 500 rounds of Tommy gun, wasting people in the streets and taking out yellow dudes like nothing. It was awesome. So I had fun doing that, but I have to get back to playing it on the Xbox so I can catch up.
Gotcha.
But otherwise, yeah, that's pretty much all PC stuff for me. How has your gaming week gone video game wise?
So real quick, before I jump into that, do you feel like now, that you're going to try to split time? Do you feel like you are going to go back to PC being your primary video game system? What are you thinking about all of it?
I think, my game, so I will be gaming where people are gaming. So right now, while I think I'm on a little bit of a lull of solo games, after going through God of War, I think I'm going to play where people are playing. So if there's a Switch game night for Mario Kart, I'm on Mario Kart. If we're trying to play 4-player Division or State of Decay on the Xbox or Overwatch, I'm in. And, if I'm trying to play games with Lucas and Coach on PC, it's great because now everyone's in this like scheduling game nights now, which is nice because I can work around that.
Right.
So, I'm just excited to be able to be back on everything again. I know it's not going to last, so I'm going to enjoy it while I can, because either the console race will outgrow me, like get past me, or I will fall behind in what I can run on my computer. So I'm just going to enjoy it while I'm at a level where I can kind of be on competing for everything.
Gotcha. Very cool. So I have played a couple things this week. I really want to play Luminous, but I haven't played it yet. But I did pick up, because this is really bad. I forgot I pre-ordered this game. And then I got a message from GameStop telling me I had pre-ordered this game and I should come pick it up. So apparently I pre-ordered Mario Tennis Aces on Switch. Yeah, I totally forgot. I totally 100% forgot I had ordered that game forever ago. So I went and picked it up. I was like, well, it's already paid for. That's fine. I'll just go get it. So I went and got Mario Tennis Aces. And here's what I will say. I haven't put a ton of time into it yet. I've played a little bit of the multiplayer, and I have played a little bit of the single player campaign. The multiplayer, way better than it was in the beta, as far as it's much more stable for me. The matches are very good. I really actually enjoy playing the multiplayer. Like, it's a really fun, cool, arcadey, almost fighting game style sports game. Like, you really can see that as you progress and learn the ins and outs and learns the counters to the things that other players are doing, that there's probably not a super extremely deep game there, but there's definitely strategy involved. There's definitely depth to what's happening. It's not just playing tennis and hitting a ball back and forth. There are some really cool things going on there. So I think the multiplayer, especially if you're playing with friends, I think it would be very fun. I think that the characters are cool and unique and different. They definitely add a little bit of flavor and pizzazz to the game. The single player, though, is not good at all. I really don't like it. And if it was more just playing matches against other characters, I think I would like it more. They have these ridiculous challenges you need to do. I am saying ridiculous that you need to accomplish to get through this thing. And I get the fact that they're trying to make you a better player of the tennis game, but some of the first challenges they give you immediately are really challenging. And that's fine. I'm totally cool with a hard game, but they have told you one time how this thing works, but now you need to like execute it to perfection. And there's one thing where you have to not let your opponent, you have to hit 20 successful shots without your opponent returning 3 or more of them. But they also like ramp up like how, so basically you have the piranha plant spitting balls at you, and the goal is to help you get better at lob shots and drop shots. So you're trying to put the ball in a place where this character can't get you. I think it's Spike, the Spike can't get them. But sometimes the piranha plants will like hit like a really powerful shot at you where you have to use your special power to like slow down time and then hit back or return the ball perfectly timed. Otherwise it does damage to your racket. So you can also lose if your racket breaks. So not only do you not have to let Spike hit the ball 3 times, and keep in mind, Spike just has to hit it. Doesn't matter, because once Spike hits it, you can't return it and you lose one of the 3 opportunities. So it's just really doesn't feel fun. Yeah. So it's really disappointing. And I know that there are some folks on Twitter who are saying, well, at least it has a single player campaign. What did we expect it to be? I expected it to be better than this. That's what I'll say. It's not really what I was looking for. But like I said, the multiplayer is very fun. Just the act of actually playing tennis matches is a good time. All of these mini games that they constructed, though, for the single player, I really do not find very fun at all. So I will probably keep plinking away at this game and playing it for a little bit. I don't really think anyone else in PSVG is really playing this game. So honestly, I probably will trade it in to pick up Captain Toad here in a week or 2. But I will play it for funsies in the meantime until then. So that's Mario Tennis Aces on Switch. It's fine. The multiplayer fun, the single player not so great. However, a single player game I have been playing that is great, and it's great only in the sense of sometimes playing really dumb over-the-top video games is great. PlayStation Network had a flash sale last weekend. So Josh, you own a new game. I don't know if you noticed this.
Which
but
one?
I picked up Bulletstorm, darn it.
Oh, I did see that. I was like, well, that's weird.
I really loved Bulletstorm when it first came out, initially back in the 360 PS3 era. Not because it's a really well-defined, nuanced piece of art, but sometimes you just like playing a video game. And Bulletstorm, to me, 100% fits the bill. So it was on sale for super cheap. I think it was like $14. So I said, sure. I really had a fun time. The first time I played this, I'm sure I'm probably going to have a fun time playing it again. And it is stupid fun. The remaster is not great. It is a good remaster, not a great remaster. There are still situations where going into new rooms or things like that, there might be a brief chug as it transitions, a drop in frame rate here or there. But just the gameplay of this game is so over-the-top ridiculous. Did you ever play Bulletstorm?
I did, yeah. I played it on the Xbox.
Okay, so just the idea of throwing that leash out to grab people, pull them into the air, and then trying to figure out what cool trick shots you can do to get the most experience that you can is just a riotly good time. Kicking them into the environment, attaching them to cactuses, dropping exploding barrels on people. Like, this game is just over the top. It's like a summer action movie for me. It's not going to win any Oscars, but it's a really good sit. And that's what Bulletstorm is for me. It is a good sit. So I will continue to play this. I have been, honestly, it's interesting because since God of War, I've really been struggling getting into a video game again. That game
me too.
ruined some things for me pretty bad, actually. So, but this is a game that it doesn't take a lot of brain cells. It doesn't take a lot of energy. I can just sit down, kick some things, pull some things. And also, you know, Gearbox, like, I feel like I gotta support them because obviously this is Gearbox Publishing. People can fly are the folks who made the game. So this is Gearbox Publishing, but you know, we didn't see any Borderlands. We've heard very little about Project 1v1. So I feel like I want to keep them in business. So I thought I would give them some money. Because I'm worried about you, Gearbox. I'm really worried about you. Where's Borderlands 3? Anyway, those are the video games that I have been playing.
Great.
So with all that,
Gearbox will be okay. Gearbox will be all right.
Well, I mean, I think they'll be fine. But, you know, I worry. I'm concerned. I really enjoyed Borderlands 2 and 1 to a degree. So yeah. I'm really looking forward to Borderlands 3 whenever that game comes out.
When it's ready.
When it is ready. But hey, the topic of the show this week is not about games that we want to play now that we can't. Actually, it kind of is. So last week, one of our most dedicated listeners, Splig, submitted yet another excellent question. and we are going to turn it into one of the topics of the show this week. One thing to note, our show this week might be a little bit shorter than they have been recently because you're going to get a double dose of Board with Video Games this week. We're going to have another extra special episode releasing on Saturday, so make sure you're listening out to that with a very special guest coming up. But before we get to that, Splig asked us to take your top 3 games from E3 and relate theme, mechanics up to you, them to a board game you can play now to pass the time till it releases. His example was Ghost of Tsushima, and then the board game that could be played in the interim is Rising Sun. So with that, we talked about our favorite things from E3 last week. Josh, what is one of the games you really enjoyed, and what is the board game counterpart you can play until that video game comes out?
So I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm not going to use one of my top 3 games from last week, but it would definitely be in my top 5 games. I'm going to say Spider-Man.
Ooh, okay.
And you could play, so you take Legendary, the game.
Mm-hmm.
There is a specific Spider-Man expansion to that game.
There is.
So you do get Spider-Man in the base box. However, you get Scarlet Spider, Black Cat, Doppelganger, I think, is in there. You get a bunch of the Maximum Carnage kind of Spider-Man stuff. You get Venom as a mastermind, I believe. But essentially, it's not going to give you that whole Spider-Man thing, but you can choose to, you play as 5 heroes, so you can choose 5 Spider-Man heroes if you want. So you can live in that Spider-Man universe. You can even throw in Hulk and Wolverine if you want to go to some of that Avengers style stuff. But yeah, you fight off, you can fight the Sinister Six. You can get, I think Electro is a mastermind, so you can go totally Spider-Man. That would be a great hold you over until Spider-Man comes out in September, I think.
September indeed, sir. Yes, September indeed. All right. So I'm actually, and it was interesting because when Splig sent this question, he didn't know what our top 3 games were going to be. But one of mine was Ghost of Tsushima, and his pick of Rising Sun is excellent. However, I'm going to stick with Ghost of Tsushima, but I'm going to pick a different board game. And the board game I am going to pick that you could play to spend the time until that game comes out, because who knows when that game's going to come out. I am going to go ahead and pick the game Yado. Have you played Yado?
No.
So Yado, definitely a, oh man, how do I explain this game? What's that?
Y-A-D-O?
Y-E-D-O, yep. Y-E-D-O, Yado. Okay. It is a worker placement, set collection, hand management with a little bit of auction going on. It's a pretty heavy game. It's not a game that's going to be your first game that you ever play.
Whoa, 3.37?
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a pretty heavy game. So I enjoy Yado, though. I actually haven't played it in a couple of years. So when I think overall in my head about how to explain this game, I'm not certain that I could do it well right now. But the general idea is that you are in the golden age of the Edo period, and you are a shogun, one of the shogun families vying for control in this world. So like I said, it's very much a worker placement game. You're collecting different resources, which you bring into your hand, and you have to manage basically how much you can have in your hand at any one time. So it's a really fun game, but like I said, it is very heavy. It is very complicated. It's one of those games that, you know, if you are not much of a board gamer, it's not the first game I'd recommend you get into. But if you are looking for a game that might take you until Ghost of Tsushima is out to fully understand how to play, I'm going to go ahead and suggest Yado.
That is a busy board.
I know, isn't it?
Oh my God. That is incredibly, and it's big.
Yeah.
I don't know how I never heard of this game, but I'm interested.
Yeah, like I said, I haven't played it in a couple of years. It's been a while since I played it. But this was one of those games back when I was playing many more heavy Euros that was in pretty regular rotation. If I had to try to teach it to someone right now, I would definitely struggle. But I enjoyed it when I played it, for sure.
Gotcha. Well, I would use one of the games I did choose, and that was Forza Horizon 4. And I would say you could do 2 games. You could do Formula D, which is probably, well, I wouldn't say the more popular. It was the most popular racing game until Downforce came out. So you could also use Downforce. Formula D, it's a 1.99 weight, so that's pretty good. However, Downforce really pushes for that family aspect in gaming. Mm-hmm. So if you're a family gamer, and Downforce is a 1.86, so it's even lower, which is perfect. I will say I have Downforce, but I haven't played it. I know the general idea, and it is it's not necessarily playing the game to win the race because you're betting on whose car you think is going to win. So you could bet on the person you're playing against to win, and you could win. But it's what transpires between, and this is the same for Formula D, between the start of the race and the end of the race. And you play cards, and in Formula D, I know you can upgrade your car to be faster. You also have to downshift around corners and things like that. So it's important for strategy, but to fulfill that racing game holdover, if you don't want to just play Forza Horizon 3, you could play Formula D or Downforce.
Excellent choices. So for my next one, another game I was really excited about, I think this is kind of fitting because it's a game I really want to play, but it's a game I've never played and I don't even own. But I also don't have this video game yet, but I feel like in looking at them, they're a perfect fit for one another. So the other game, one of the other games that I had on my list was Rage 2. Really excited about the game. I think the color, the visuals, the over-the-top powers, kind of, I mean, I think hopefully it'll be better than Bulletstorm, but it looks like a video game, right? Where you're just going to do ridiculous, over-the-top things. And I'm really, really looking forward to that. The game that I think, and there's a lot of driving in it, right? So for me, the game I think that fits that perfectly would be Wasteland Express Delivery Service. I feel like if there is a game, if you put those two side by side, I think in just what you see in the art, you'd feel like they were maybe potentially a board game version of what you're seeing in Rage 2. So I don't have Wasteland Express Delivery Service. It's the game probably more than any other game I float over and think about buying than just about anything, mostly because John Gilmore, who did Dead of Winter, is one of the designers, and I love Dead of Winter. But this game is really highly rated. I think it's going to give you that same feel that you're going to get from a game like Rage, and it's something that, yeah, I think if you're looking for something cool, fun, over the top, it sounds like from everything I've seen, everything I've read, that Wasteland Express Delivery Service might be a great fit if you're interested in Rage 2.
Nice.
What is your final one, sir?
My final one. Well, it's an obvious one. There's a Gears of War board game. And it goes perfectly if you're still waiting for more Gears. We got 3 Gears games coming. But
and Funko Pops. Don't forget about the Funko Pops.
Yeah, I was including that in the 3.
Okay, I thought so, but I was like, I didn't. Maybe I missed another game other than the strategy one and the actual one and the Funko. I didn't know.
Yeah, but it's one of the rare games that have been made from a video game that is actually well regarded. It carries a 7.5 on BGG. It's not blow your mind good, but that's pretty darn good for a licensed game. And it's a 2.88 complexity, which is solid for this type of game, and it's by Fantasy Flight Games. So it comes with really nice miniature style pieces. You get the locusts. There's a lot of great things you can do if you're into painting miniatures. But again, it's a game I haven't played. It's on my wish list, but you need to have the right gaming group for that. I can't just play that with my wife because she's not going to have any interest in the theme, which is totally understandable. But honestly, if I was craving Gears of War, this would be something I would totally look into buying for myself. I'm just not craving it at the moment. I can wait. I know not everyone can.
All right. So Gears of War.
And it's 1 to 4 players.
Oh, perfect.
So you can play solo.
Perfect. I think that was a little on the nose, maybe, but I really like just going for it. I was going to select the Fallout board game for one of mine, but I figured we're not going to do that. So my last one, the last game that I had mentioned in my 3 that I was excited about from E3 2018 was Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I'm a big Assassin's Creed fan. Really enjoyed the re-implementation and the rework that they did with Origins. Everything they're saying about Odyssey has the right feeling for me, and it's a game that I might get instead of Red Dead Redemption 2.
I wouldn't blame you.
I think most people would find that appalling, but I'm a little more excited about that than I am Red Dead Redemption 2. But, I also maybe have bad taste in games. Who knows? I like Bulletstorm. So there you go, I guess. But the game that I would pick then, if you were waiting for Assassin's Creed Odyssey, this is also a licensed game based off of a Starz original series.
Oh, nice.
That is none other than Spartacus, A Game of Blood and Treachery, which not a great title.
No.
But the Spartacus game is very fun. I really enjoyed it. It is basically a action combat arena that has some grid movement, some hand management, some action and bidding to decide what warriors are going to go in, potentially forcing your opponents to fight their gladiators against another opponent's gladiators. It's a really fun game. And I think if you're looking for especially the style of combat that they showed in those Assassin's Creed Odyssey trailers, and yes, there was a little bit of shield work, but there was a lot more fluid movement and kind of tactical moving around each other while they're fighting, and just that feel that you're looking for. I think Spartacus, A Game of Blood and Treachery, actually captures that pretty well. It is actually, for a licensed game, pretty highly rated. It's a 7.5 on Board Game Geek. Overall rank of 280. So way better than the 15,000 games that I played this week. And I haven't played Spartacus in a while. It's not a game I've owned, but I have a very good friend who owns it. And it was one of those games when I first moved to where I currently live. This is one of the games that we played pretty regularly. So it was re-implemented. I think if you're interested, I believe the WizKids game, that WizKids X-Men game, Mutant Revolution, I think is basically the same system. I think they added a little bit to it and made it potentially a little more complex, if I recall. But if the Spartacus theme isn't right up your alley and you're more into comic books, there is an X-Men game that has basically the same system that plays very, very similarly and is going to give you the same feel if you're looking for something.
Yeah, it's Mutant Revolution.
Okay, perfect.
And
yep.
It's 3 to 4 players.
Yes.
2 to 3 hour game time.
Yeah, that is the one downfall. Spartacus is also 3 to 4. There is no 2-player option, and the big reason being is that because of how the hand management and auction system works, you can force the other two people to fight their gladiators. So obviously, if you do that one, you can't really do that one-on-one. Yeah. So that is the reason it is a 3-person required game. That is the reason I don't own it. But I think if you have the right group, and I think it's really great with 4. Actually, I think 4 is a really, really good fit for that game. It's still fun with 3, but I think it's definitely best with 4. But like I said, if you're looking for a game to tide you over until AC Odyssey comes out, I think Spartacus is a great fit. So that's it for topics this week. Like I said, this week's show is going to be a little shorter than maybe the last ones we've been doing. But Josh, I believe you have a reminder for all of our listeners.
Well, of course I do. Dice Tower Con is next week. It starts on Wednesday. That's pretty exciting. What's more exciting is on Thursday are the Dice Tower Awards. Obviously, if you've been listening to this show, you know we have a Dice Tower Awards contest going on. I have affectionately called it the Predictions Contest. No, accidentally, but that's the truth. It is our Dice Tower Awards Predictions Contest. So you still have a solid week from when you hear this. We'll say 6 days to submit your picks to us. Remember, all you have to do is predict the winner of each category. The person with the highest average will be our winner, and I will personally be sending you a game that is in the group of winners that is not Gloomhaven. I repeat, I will not be sending you Gloomhaven. Even if I could drive to you, I am not buying you Gloomhaven. But that being said, free game. All you have to do is take 5 minutes out of your day to send us an email or a DM or a PM or an AM, any of those. Give us your predictions and win a game. Come on, guys.
That sounds, I mean, it really doesn't seem that hard. Take 5 minutes, guess some winners, potentially win a free game. And based on the number of entries we have, right now your chances are decent. I wouldn't say they're great, but they're decent.
Yes.
So
they're all right. You got good odds.
But hey, it's been a fun time to chat tonight, Josh. Do you think we should maybe wrap this show up in anticipation of recording another show very soon?
But boy, we got a good surprise for you guys coming up. You'll on Saturday, right? That's what we said. You guys.
Yeah. So this show will release Thursday morning, as it always does. So if you're listening to us on Thursday, hey, how's it going? Be ready for another show to launch Saturday morning with a very special guest who, if you are familiar or check out Kickstarters, they have a game currently on Kickstarter. I'm not going to tell you what the game is today, but if you look at Kickstarter board games and look for one of the most ridiculous looking board games you've ever seen that also looks really awesome, that will probably give you a hint about who we're going to be talking about too and what we're going to be talking about for our episode on Saturday. But Josh, with that being said, sir, why don't we take this one home? Why don't we wrap it up?
Great idea. Thank you, everybody, for joining us every week. We appreciate it greatly. Remember, you can find us on all the social medias at BOARD with VG. That's at Gmail. That's on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're all over the place. If you didn't see our tweet and our Instagram earlier, I am very excited that we are now available on Stitcher and Stitcher Premium, which is what I use for a lot of my comedy podcasts. You can also get us on Spotify now if you are a Spotify listener. So you can get PSVG everywhere as well. Not to mention, big PSVG announcement on Friday. So we get stuff coming out all over the place. New board with VG Thursday. PSVG special announcement Friday. And then a special board with video games on Saturday. And since I am currently having a fit of the laughs, I'm going to just pass it right over to Kyle.
That sounds awesome. One thing that we used to do on occasionally on this podcast, which I don't think we've done in a while, is we talk about what we've been drinking lately. I just want to point out that I just had a Golden Road Brewing Mango Cart, which is a mango wheat ale, and it tastes like summer in my mouth. It was amazing. It was so good. So if you like mango and you like beer, I really definitely recommend checking this beer out. It is delicious. It is quite awesome, and I'm a huge mango fan. They were on sale at the grocery store this week, 3 for $1. Three mangoes for $1. That's nice. Really, man. When I was a kid, if that was the kind of stuff I thought I'd get excited about when I was an adult, I really would never want to become an adult. 3 mangoes for $1. But anyway, you can find me anywhere you want to on Twitter, Instagram, PlayStation Network, Xbox Live, Board Game Geek, all at Psychocross, CYCOCROSS. Talk to me about games. Talk to me about mangoes. Talk to me about food and beer. Any of that stuff is fantastic. If you have suggestions for future topics, always reach out to us on the social medias. We definitely appreciate it when you give us suggestions, just like Splig did, because that lets us make sure that we are talking about the things you want to hear about. Again, remember, special episode coming out Saturday of talking about a very cool game that is currently on Kickstarter. But until then, everyone, whether it be board games or video games, never stop gaming.
This has been a production of the Play Some Video Games Podcast Network. Find more great content at playsomevideogames.com.